Hey everybody, welcome back to the Leonardo the Lion tutorials, finishing tutorials, and today is our last tutorial in the series. We have so far attached his tail, learned how to finish his tail with the curve, sewn it onto his bum. We have attached all of his sweater finishings, all of the buttons for his sweater. We've done duplicate stitch on the little duplicate stitch crown onto his sweater, and we've sewn on his eyes, his button eyes, his ears, his eyelids, his nose, oh sorry about that, and we have embroidered on all of his facial features. So that is where we're at with this. So now it's time for the big fun part where we attach his glorious mane, if you want to make him into a boy lion. If you don't, it can be a lioness and just leave her like that. So the first thing that we're going to do is consult Brenda's directions. So I'm just going to put Leonardo off to the side right now. And I'm going to bring out my contrast color 2, which is red feather for his mane and for the back of his head. And a label. So in Brenda's finishing instructions for the mane, she says to use a 2.5 inch wide piece of cardboard or the yarn label. And I think that she actually used the yarn label to cut all of her mane pieces. So see what the easiest way to do this. I'm probably going to use this from the outside of the ball this time. Just kind of. So of course it's like curved up a little bit, and if I had been smart, I would have put this underneath a book or something to flatten it out a bit. But I'm just using the yarn label that was on my own skein of red feather, and just to give myself an anchor, I'm just going to cut into it right there and slip in my tail like that, just so that it has something to grab onto. Now I should have done this actually the other way because I am right-handed and I want my tail to be here while I'm wrapping so that I can go from left to right, or right to left, whatever you want to do. Just all you have to do is wrap the yarn 50 times, approximately 50 times around this piece of cardboard or this label, whatever you're using. It's really nice to have something that's already cut to the right size. But what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna wrap, and she says to wrap about 50 times and then cut across one of the sides. So since my end is here, I'm just gonna cut this way so that I have approximately 5-inch long tails, about 50 of them. So I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna do that again 5 more times so that I have approximately 300 of these little tails. So I'm going to come back when I have my little pile ready, or actually I'll come back and show you what I do when I cut them. But it's really simple. You just go like that. But I will be right back to show you how to cut these guys. Okay, so I've wound this around approximately 50 times, and if I had been a little bit smarter, I would have spread it out a bit more along the bit of cardboard, but I didn't. C'est la vie. And I'm just gonna take my scissor. It's always so satisfying cutting yarn like this. I don't know why, but I have that same thrill when I make a pom-pom. The rare occasion that I do. So there we go. Here's our first pile of 50 little yarn tails. Okay, everybody, I'm back with my little Muppet pile of yarn tails here. This is about 500 tails. So they don't have to be perfectly even because luckily we can trim them at the end. So that they're all somewhat the same. So like you can see that these two tails aren't the same. I think that one was like from the end, but here we go. So here are two that are roughly the same. So for this, Brenda gives the option of using either a crochet hook or a tapestry needle to do this. I'm going to use a crochet hook because I think it's going to go so much faster. But we'll see. So I'm going to grab Leo here. I'm going to put him, his little head facing downwards, and I'm just going to start at, so she gives us the directions to start at the perimeter of his head, which I think is a great idea, just to kind of like give him a ring around his head. So this area is going to be a little bit more tricky than the other areas just because there's a big old seam right here, like where you seam together his front and back of his head. So I'm just going to go under with my crochet hook like so, and then grab the center point of these two yarn tails and hold them and bring them through like that. So and so I'm going to leave these loops on my crochet hook, and then I'm going to yarn over these tails and bring them through the loops like so. So here's what it looks like from the front. He's got a little alfalfa sprout sticking up from the top of his head. So you're gonna do that all the way around his head. So he's gonna have like these little sprouts sticking up all the way around his head. So later in this series, we're actually gonna do another row, or even maybe another 2 rows of mane on top of his head right here, so it comes down to like to his ears, which she does tell you to do in the directions as well. But for now, we're just gonna work on the perimeter of the head. So I'll do a couple more for you on camera before I go off and do them by myself. So luckily there is a lot left over in my skein of my contrast color skein. So if I need more tails and I want to make a fuller mane, then you know what I end up with after I use up all of these original 500 tails, I'm gonna go ahead and cut myself more and fill it out even more. So the only downside that I can see using a crochet hook is that you're probably end up grabbing some stuffing and pulling it out a little bit, which, you know, is okay. You can just stuff it right. You can just stuff it right back in. You can use either like the blunt end of your crochet hook like that, or a tapestry needle, or even a finger if you want to. So you see how I space those out? It's just, they're just like a couple of stitches apart. And this is taking up a little bit more room than some of the other ones will, because of the seam. The bulky seam is eating up more length on the tail. So I'm just gonna keep going, and then I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Hey everybody, so here is Leonardo with the perimeter of his head all done. Yeah, so I ended up going around his head with the tapestry needle because the crochet hook just wasn't doing it for me, and it's so much easier to do it this way. Sometimes it just takes doing something to be able to learn that. So I did the entire perimeter of his head, And then I also did another line in front of that original perimeter of his head right here. So let me just show you how I worked this. Now, if you ended up using if you're using a crochet hook and it's going along great for you, then by all means keep doing that. So for the tapestry needle, I actually went around the back of his ears too. But with the tapestry needle, you just go under a stitch and you pull through the two ends here, and then you just do either 1 knot or 2 knots, whatever you want to do. And that's it. And following Brenda's instructions, I'm just spacing out these little tails every couple of stitches or so. I'm doing them probably a little bit more densely than she recommends, so it's like every other stitch I'm doing one, and then I'm leaving about 2 rows or so in between the tails above. So as you can see, there's like 2 rows in between this one and the one above it here. So we're packing these in pretty densely. And what you're going to do is just continue going however you want to, putting these tails on the back of his head to finish his mane. So what we're going to do is go around his neck here. So I'm going to do that next and just kind of keep filling it in until I get to either to the center or work down, however this pattern ends up. But so far, he's looking pretty cute from the front. I love his scraggly little mane. So when I come back in the end, it's going to take me a little while to do this. We're going to just trim up his beard, his mane. And that will be it for Leo. All right, thanks everybody. Stay tuned for the final filled in mane. Hey everybody, we're back today with more on finishing his mane. It's been several days since I filmed the first set of tutorials for his mane because it's just taken me that long to attach everything. So this is definitely, it's not hard by any means. It's just the part that's probably gonna take the most time out of any, even the knitting is not gonna take as long as it takes to attach his mane, but it's totally worth it because it makes this project. So I decided to make his mane a bit more dense than Brenda suggested in her directions. So his mane is very lush. It hasn't been trimmed yet, but I'm just going to show you my progress here so you can see the front of his head and his full lush mane. And then we'll flip it over, and I just have this little bald spot back here to finish up. So let me just show you quickly how I've been doing that, and because I'm nearing the end here, and just to show you, I still have some left on my original skein of yarn. I don't think I'm gonna need much more than what I have cut here, but I might need a little bit more, but you definitely have enough to do a full mane like this in the skein that you get in your bundle. So just keep that in mind. So let's see. I'm gonna thread my needle with my bits of yarn. Now the piece that slows me down the most is having to rethread my needle every single time I have to put on, obviously have to put on a new bit of hair. But you can see I just keep brushing these off to the side like so, and like smoothing them out and laying them down so that I can see what I'm doing. So right now I'm just kind of like going in a circle as I seam, as I attach these so that it fills out really well. So I'm spacing it out like about one stitch over, 1 stitch down, and filling in as I go. I deliberately made the front bit of his head, including, and I'll show you in just a second after I show you what I'm doing here. So you see I have like a little knot here, a knot here, a knot here. So I'm going to put one right here. And I'm just going under 1 stitch and just doing a simple overhand knot. Boop. And then I just brush the one that I just did off to in the direction that all of the other little yarn hairs are going. I'll do another one just to show you. And so for this one, I'm going to put it right here. His mane is reminding me so much of my Raggedy Ann doll when I was a little one. And one more. Thread. And for this one, I'm going to go right here. So just use your judgment. This is really about what you like and what you prefer. You know, if you want a less robust mane or don't feel like doing all of this, then by all means space them out a little bit more. I just really wanted this nice thick fluffy mane. So like, see what happens when I fluff it up? It's so fluffy. Like it almost covers the bald, like it almost covers the bald patch. It's so fluffy. So when I fluff this all up, fluff, 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 and then turn him over and I fluff up his beard. So I actually did a couple of rows under his chin just to make sure that his beard was super full. I just think he looks so cute. So I'll be back when I finish filling in the rest of this little patch. It might be tomorrow, but almost done. Hey everybody, so here he is. It took me about maybe about another half an hour at the point where I was last night, maybe an hour. I was just watching TV while I was finishing up his little mane, but here it is in all its glory. Look at that. So I used up almost the entire ball of red feather to be able to fill this in. I had like maybe 50 strands left after I was all done with this, because I ended up just winding off and cutting a whole bunch of tails so that I didn't have to keep cutting over and over again. So I ended up winding the whole ball and cutting it. So I definitely had enough to be able to fill in his mane this much. It just took a while, but I totally recommend doing it because he looks super. And I absolutely love the way that he turned out.